overlay. Hello and welcome to A Life of Creation. My name is Chad and I am the host of this channel. Today I want to talk about collecting. So let's get into it. All right, collecting. Why do I believe that collecting is considered an act of creation? Well, one, I do collect a lot of things. I collect baseball cards. I collect fountain pens. Because my youngest son really got into Hot Wheels, I started, noticing some fun ones, and I started collecting the ones that I liked. And um, I like old coins, gemstones. Um, I kind of just dive into a lot of different things, just because either I'm interested in it or my sons showed some interest in something, so I just go all in and try and make them keep up with me, even though they get over it way sooner than I do. So I like to collect. It was, I blame my grandpa and my dad. We just call it like the Sengstock gene. We collect things. It's just kind of came with the territory, I guess. My grandpa got me into baseball cards, and my dad, he didn't really necessarily collect, or he doesn't necessarily collect anything in particular, but he, had a very big DVD collection. He had, if he likes something, he'll get a couple of different variations or whatever. So he has that tendency. He just didn't necessarily focus on a specific thing. Um, like my grandpa's into all kinds of stuff too, but he had kind of a little more like Indian, Native American art, baseball cards. He liked certain, artists or whatever, and I kind of just found my niches too, and I went with it. So why do I believe that collecting is an act of creation? I think there's something to be said about, your people who collect things tend to put a lot of time and energy into researching those things. They figure out the value of these things, the history, how to preserve and maintain and to display. And, they're taking time and energy to, learn about these things and preserve these moments of time and history, like antiquing and, even baseball cards. They're moments of time and they're linked to history in the past. And, the collectors are taking their time to categorize and maintain and preserve these things that can then be passed on to future generations. Even if not the items themselves, they're passing on the knowledge of them, the history of them, the reason why people might be intrigued by them. I think there's something really cool about that. They're, creating this. It's basically they're creating a legacy of these items. They're showing that they are worth a time. They're worth you taking a moment to appreciate. Um, and I think um, that is adding to, your collection is then adding onto someone else's life, or you're instilling um, new knowledge or new appreciation in someone else. And that's kind of how I look at it with like the Hot Wheels, for example. My son is really into them right now, but he throws them across the room, beats them up, crashes them, and he's a 5 year old right now, and that's what I would do at 5 years old. I would play hard with these toys, but so for me, I'm taking some that might pique my interest more, like the cars that I gravitate to. But I always tell them, I'm like, look, you can have these when you're older, um, and I think he may not care at that moment, but I think for me, having a little collection of Hot Wheels now and even in the future will always remind me of my son and his love for those particular cars. And I think so for me, some of the collecting is sentimental. And I got back into baseball cards because it made me think of my grandpa a lot, and his love for it. Um, and the gemstones kind of came from my oldest son, who was reading a lot on dinosaurs, and um, you know, uh, he got into Indiana Jones and archaeology and all this kind of finding old treasures and stuff. So, I got books on minerals, and, kind of fell in love with just really the miracle of these creations of these minerals. It's incredible to kind of, I haven't dived too much into it, but it, a lot of things have to happen in order to make these beautiful gemstones. And then, as I learned on that and started buying some little gemstones, you start looking into how things are cut and made. And I mean, geez, that is an amazing art form too. The lapidaries, that how they cut and shape stones. So there's, the even the object that you own or you are collecting is can be this product of an amazing life of creation. Like someone spent, so like gemstones for instance, someone took a lot of time to learn how to facet and shape these minerals in incredibly beautiful, detailed, precise ways, and um, create these like jewels and creations, like treasures that will outlast me, and most people. Um, so I think that is something when I collect things, like I'm just a part of the story of that item. Um, and I mean, the other side of it too is, there's a possibility of, you know, you're creating wealth by these collections. These collections could then become valuable over time, and you may have this gold mine, that you hand off to your kids. I mean, you see, I get the headlines all the time on my Google feed because I obviously look up all these things. So I always get these like, $1 million card found in a barn in the middle of nowhere in Kentucky. It's just, you're like, well, okay, I wish that would happen to me. But to be honest, most collections probably aren't going to be worth a whole lot in the future. Um, at least monetarily. It could mean a lot to your family, and it could mean a lot to you. And I think that is part of, creating wealth. You're creating something that is valuable to yourself, whether it's worth a lot of money or it's just valuable to you. And then, um, apart from the money, I think collectors are creating these incredible communities, um, within those niches that they are into. You're finding these like little subgenres of people who, might like a 1963 quarter, like they only collect 1963 quarters. There's probably people who like that, and there's several of you. And how cool is it that you can find this very specific small thing that can then connect you to a community of people who all think and value that one thing. um, I mean, obviously, if you're trying to create a collection that will be valuable over time, you would hopefully you're collecting something that is a little more mainstream collected, or more people actually want it. But you are still, whatever you are collecting, you are still a part of a community that values those things. Um, I've met people through Instagram or whatever about baseball cards. I talk to them, or coins or gemstones. I get emails from a guy who talks about all the new Hot Wheel cars, and you're just like, this. I'm in my mid 40s, and I kind of laugh that I'm just, I'm a big kid looking up toys and baseball cards and all these like silly things I probably would have thought of as just a complete joke, in my 20s. um, but here I am. Um, but all that to say, I think as a collector, you are creating multiple. Your collection is creating multiple areas that in your life that are, I think, beneficial. You're preserving history. You're passing on knowledge and history, and inspirations. So you're building a legacy to hand down, and you know potential for wealth growth, whether it's for you personally or monetarily, or you're building and creating a community that you know you can connect to and build relationships with. And I think that's a very powerful thing, and I think those are all things that are very important in a life of creation. um, but really got me thinking on this subject was, um, I started thinking about all the people who would say, I'm not a collector. I don't collect things. I don't want possessions. I don't want you know my house filled with random trinkets or little things I got to dust. All these things that people consider when they are not collectors, and they look at people who are collectors and go, oh my goodness, you got so much stuff to maintain. Why would you do that to yourself? So I really was thinking about them, because I think overall most people, I think everyone is a collector in some capacity. And the people who say that they aren't collectors or are hobbyists or whatever, they usually say, I prefer experiences over possessions. I don't want things. I want to do things, right? Um, so my argument for them would be, well, you may not be a collector of items, but you are a collector of experiences. Um, you you're taking your time and energy to experience things, and you are collecting memories. You're collecting um, you're collecting experiences that you can then pass on to you know your uh, your kids, or your friends. And I think you take, so if you are collecting these experiences and then you're like posting it on you know on social media, or you're writing a blog or something, so you're taking your experiences, and then you're not only sharing it with those that you share the experience with, but then you are spreading it to the world. Let's say you are then connecting to a wider community of people who are then interested in those experiences that you had, and they may have had similar experiences, and then you're now, forming this community of people who had these shared experiences. So you're connecting with people who have the same interests as you. You're, you know starting to go, oh, this friend loves coffee, I love coffee, well, let's go get coffee together and we'll have an experience. We'll spend our money that way. Let's not buy anything like object, but let's use our money to go have coffee together. And I think that is an experience, and that is, you're collecting an experience. Like, that is something that you will hold on to, you value. The you know it could generate some return of some ROI, so return on investment, because it may not be monetarily, but you could be enriched by that experience yourself. The person that you connected with could be enriched by that experience, and then from that experience you can then pass it on through social media or blog or whatever. Then people will read that experience, and then you are putting, you know you could be filling them up with something that then they themselves will hold on to and then spread. So you are creating a legacy yourself, and you you're being connected into a community of like-minded people as well. And I think, um, I was kind of even thinking about people who pursue knowledge, professors or scholars or whatever, who also would probably say the same thing, that they aren't collectors of anything. But again, they're taking this time to, just absorb as much info or knowledge as they can about a certain subject. And it could be a very niche theme that they are interested in, and they could become the expert of it. And they've collected all of this data that then they can then, push out in writing form or lectures, or, in some way to pass that on to someone else. And they are building a legacy through their life of collecting this data, and information and history. And they are, just like I was saying about me as a collector, preserving history, and they too are preserving history. It's just knowledge and information that people can then, you know take and use for themselves. um so it's so when I was just kind of thinking about it, is interesting to me to think about how, the things that we collect in our lives can actually be impactful to others. um, you can connect to others, you can share with others, and you could, you know fill each other up with your collection. Like, something simple, I can take a Hot Wheel car and give it to my son, and it would bring him joy, it bring me joy for giving him something, and then that can then spread. And so I think, I kind of use this as an excuse now to be like, oh, I'm good to collect, it's perfectly fine, it's all good. Obviously, you got to be careful with your money and not do anything stupid, but the journey of learning and researching these things and getting little things, like honing in a small collection of things, it's fun. And I think that is, kind of goes to how I think of a life of creation. It's kind of like having fun, being intentional on what you're doing, pursuing things that bring you joy, and really, ultimately, how can you then pass that on to others? And I think by collecting objects, experiences, knowledge, we can then take that collection, pass it on to others, and create a legacy and a community that contributes to other people's lives of creation. All right, that was just my thought on collecting. I hope you enjoyed it. Feel free to like and subscribe and tune in to the next one. All right, thanks.